The massive screen in Earth's Global Defense Command Center showed something that made everyone stop breathing. A ship, bigger than anything humans had ever built, had just appeared near the moon. It wasn't trying to hide. In fact, it was broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Captain Han-Bin Kim stood at his post, his hands tight on the railing. He had trained for many things in his 15 years of service, but first contact, that wasn't in any manual. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "they're sending the message in perfect English. And in every other Earth language, too." Han-Bin nodded slowly. "Put it on screen." The message was simple. "Greetings, Earth. We are representatives of the Galactic Council. We come in peace and wish to open diplomatic relations." "Well," Han-Bin said, managing a small smile, "at least they didn't start shooting." His crew gave a nervous laugh. The tension in the room dropped a little. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Leaders from every nation joined emergency video calls. The Earthborn Pride, humanity's most advanced spaceship under Han-Bin's command, was chosen to meet the aliens. It wasn't as big as the alien ship, not even close, but it was the best Earth had. As they approached the massive alien vessel, Han-Bin noticed something odd. The alien ship's design seemed almost delicate. Its hull was thin, with beautiful spiral patterns that couldn't possibly offer much protection. Coming from Earth, where everything had to be built tough to handle the harsh conditions, this seemed strange. "Captain," his science officer reported, "their ship's hull wouldn't survive a day in Earth's atmosphere. It's too fragile." The alien ship's docking bay opened like a blooming flower. Han-Bin guided the Earthborn Pride inside, noting how everything seemed to be made of materials that would snap like twigs back on Earth. The meeting room was just as delicate. The alien delegates who waited for them were tall, thin beings with large eyes and silvery skin. They moved carefully, as if Earth's normal gravity was a burden to them. "Welcome," the lead alien said, speaking through what must have been a translator. "I am High Counselor Nen of the Galactic Council. The alien paused, checking something on a floating screen. "We must admit, we are quite surprised." "Surprised?" Han-Bin asked politely. "Yes, you see, your world, Earth, is classified in our databases as a death world. The gravity is crushing, the atmosphere is corrosive, the temperature swings are extreme, and the wildlife is terrifying. Yet here you are, not only surviving but thriving, building spaceships, creating technology." Han-Bin blinked. A death world. Earth? To humans, it was just home. "Most interesting," another alien added, "is your ship's design. The reinforced hull, the multiple backup systems, the shielding, all built to withstand conditions that would destroy most Council ships instantly." The aliens shared looks that Han-Bin couldn't quite read. Were they impressed? Worried? Both. "Captain Kim," High Counselor Nen said, "we would very much like to establish formal relations with Earth. Your people have achieved something remarkable. To develop space travel while living on a death world. It speaks of incredible potential." Han-Bin felt pride swell in his chest, but something in the alien's tone made him cautious. There was an edge to their interest that reminded him of old Earth history, of powerful nations discovering smaller ones. "We would be honored," he replied carefully, "to open diplomatic channels, but understand that Earth speaks as an independent world, ready to join the galactic community as equals." The alien's reaction was quick. A slight stiffening, a barely noticeable pause. If Han-Bin hadn't been watching closely, he would have missed it. "Of course," High Counselor Nen said smoothly. "We look forward to learning more about your remarkable species." As Han-Bin led his team back to their ship, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. The aliens' interest in Earth's death world status seemed too keen, too focused. He would make sure to include every detail in his report. Earth's leaders needed to know that while they had just made first contact, they should proceed with caution. Very careful caution. Solney Park stood at the window of her quarters in the council ship, staring down at Earth. Her hand shook slightly as she touched the glass. After all the stories her grandmother had told her, here it was, the homeworld of her ancestors. Observer Park. A soft chime announced, "The council requests your presence for the mission briefing." She straightened her silver uniform and walked to the meeting room. As a human raised in council space, she was their perfect choice to study Earth. But they didn't know about her grandmother's secret histories, passed down through generations since the ancient Korean settlement ships were taken from Earth centuries ago. The briefing room held 5 council members, their tall, thin forms making her feel short and sturdy in comparison. She had always been different from her council colleagues, built for a world they considered hellish. Observer Park. High Counselor Nen began. Your mission is to assess Earth's suitability for integration. Pay special attention to their military capabilities and response to stress situations. Solney nodded, but inside her stomach turned. She knew what they really wanted. They were looking for soldiers, not allies. The next day, she led her team to Earth's surface. They landed in Seoul, one of Earth's major cities. The council members with her wore protective suits, struggling with the gravity. Solney walked freely, feeling strangely at home. Captain Han Bin Kim met them at the landing site. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her. "You're human," he said in Korean, surprising her. "My ancestors were from Earth," she replied in the same language, feeling a strange connection. "They left a long time ago." The council members shifted uncomfortably, unable to understand their exchange. Solney quickly switched back to the common language. "We're here to learn about your civilization," she announced formally. Over the next few days, Solney's team visited military bases, schools, and city centers. The council members kept making notes about human strength, endurance, and technological adaptations. But Solney found herself noticing different things: the way people helped each other, the laughter of children playing in parks, the peaceful mixing of different cultures. One evening, she sat in a small restaurant, tasting real Korean food for the first time. The flavors brought tears to her eyes. They were exactly as her grandmother had described. "Is everything okay?" Captain Han Bin had joined her, looking concerned. "Yes," she said, wiping her eyes. "It's just, my grandmother used to tell me about Earth's food, about the tastes of home. I never thought I'd experience it myself." Han Bin's expression changed. "Your grandmother, she kept Earth's memory alive." Solney nodded. Every story, every tradition she could remember. The council didn't approve, but she said we needed to know where we came from. "And where did you come from?" Han Bin asked carefully. "How did your people leave Earth?" Solney looked down at her food. The council, they'd done this before. Centuries ago, they took small groups from Earth. Test subjects, really. My ancestors were from Korea. There were others too, from different parts of Earth. Most died. We're the only group that survived. Han Bin's face hardened. "Does the council know you know this?" "No," Solney whispered. "They think we believe their story about voluntary colonization." "Why are you telling me this?" Solney met his eyes. "Because Earth needs to know. The council, they're not here to welcome you. They're here to use you, just like they used us." Han Bin reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Thank you," he said simply. As Solney walked back to her quarters that night, she made a decision. She would complete her assessment, but not for the council. She would write the truth and give it to Earth. Her grandmother had always said that someday they would need to choose between the council and their true home. That day had come. Jin Woo Lee hadn't slept in 2 days. His office in Earth's Cyber Defense Center was dark except for the glow of screens. Empty coffee cups littered his desk. But he couldn't stop now, not when he was so close to understanding what was in the council's secret files. The Council had given Earth access to their basic network as a gesture of trust. But Jinwu knew better than to trust anything that came too easily. 20 years of breaking codes had taught him that. "Found something interesting?" a quiet voice asked. Jinwu jumped. Captain Hanbin stood in the doorway with Solmi Park, the Council's human observer. Jinwu's hand moved to close his screens, but Hanbin shook his head. "It's okay," Hanbin said. "Solmi is helping us now. Show us what you found." Jinwu nodded slowly. He turned back to his screens and pointed to a complex web of data. "See these patterns? The Council's network has layers. The public layer is beautiful, perfect, too perfect. But underneath," he typed quickly, and new information filled the screens. "I found their military files. They have whole armies made up of beings from death worlds like Earth. But these soldiers, they're not volunteers." Solna stepped closer, her face pale. "My grandmother was right," she whispered. Jinwu pulled up more files. "The Council has done this 7 times before. They find a high-gravity planet with strong, adaptable people. They take small groups first, like they did with Solni's ancestors. They test them, study them. Then they come back for the rest." "And what happens to the people they take?" Hanbin asked quietly. Jinwu's hands shook as he opened the next file. "They break them. Not with violence. They're too civilized for that. They use debt. They give the Deathworlders ships, technology, and resources. But everything comes with a price. Before long, the whole planet is working to pay off an impossible debt. Their only choice is to serve in the Council's armies. Fighting wars, the Council species are too weak to fight themselves." Solmai added bitterly. "Exactly," Jinwu said. "But here's the interesting part. The Council species aren't just physically weak. Their whole empire is weak. They need us more than we need them." He showed them another screen. "Look at these numbers. Their ships can't handle extreme conditions. Their worlds have never faced serious threats. They've grown soft, relying on enslaved Deathworlders to solve their problems." Hanbin leaned forward. "How many Deathworld species are there in their forces?" 6 active ones, Jinwu said. "The 7th. He paused. "The 7th species rebelled. The Council erased most of the records, but I found traces. The 7th species almost won their freedom. They only failed because they fought alone." The room fell silent as they all understood what this meant. Earth wasn't being invited to join a peaceful galactic community. They were being sized up for conquest. "How long?" Hanbin asked. "How long before they try to take Earth?" Jinwu checked his data. "Based on their usual pattern, they'll make their move within 6 months. They'll offer us everything we've ever dreamed of. Advanced technology, clean energy, medical breakthroughs. By the time we realize it's a trap, it'll be too late. Unless," Solmai said slowly, "we use this time to prepare. And," she hesitated, "and maybe contact the other Deathworld species. Show them what I've seen here, that resistance is possible." Jinwu nodded eagerly. "I've already found ways into their communication systems. We could reach out secretly, build trust." "Do it," Hanbin ordered. "But be careful. If the Council realizes what we know." He didn't need to finish the sentence. As Jinwu turned back to his screens, he felt a mix of fear and excitement. Earth had never faced a threat like this before. But then again, the Council had never faced a Deathworlder who could break through their cyber defenses. The game was about to change. And this time, the Deathworlders wouldn't fight alone. The Grand Meeting Hall of the United Nations was packed. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in tense silence. On the main stage, the Council delegation stood behind a podium made of what looked like crystal. High Counselor Nen's silver skin gleamed under the lights. Captain Hanbin sat in the front row between Jinwu and Solme. All 3 knew what was coming. They had spent the last week preparing Earth's leaders for this moment. People of Earth, Nen began, his translator making his voice sound smooth and friendly. We have spent 3 months studying your remarkable world. Today, we offer you a place among the stars. Large screens around the hall lit up with beautiful images, massive space stations, ships that could cross galaxies in days, cities that floated in the clouds. All of this can be yours, Nen continued. We will share our technology freely. Your diseases will be cured. Your energy problems solved. Your cities will reach the stars. Han Bin watched the faces around him. Many looked amazed. Some looked hopeful. But others, the ones he and his team had briefed, showed no reaction at all. In return, Nen said, we ask only one thing. Earth's strength is legendary among the stars. Your people are natural warriors, born on a world that would crush most species. We ask that you serve as the Council's peacekeepers. Your ships will protect trade routes. Your soldiers will guard Council worlds. Your strength will keep the peace. The hall burst into whispers. It sounded like such a simple thing, such a small price to pay. But Jin Wu's hand was already moving across his tablet. The real numbers appeared on small screens in front of certain world leaders. The true cost of Council technology, the size of the dead Earth would owe, the number of soldiers Earth would have to provide. This is a great honor, Nen said. Few worlds are chosen for such an important role. How many exactly? A voice called out. Solmai stood up, her Council uniform gleaming. How many Deathworld species serve the Council now? Nen's smooth expression flickered. Observer Park, this is not the time. 6, she said loudly. 6 species serve as peacekeepers. My own ancestors were taken from Earth centuries ago to serve. Would you like to know what happened to them? The hall grew silent. Nen's skin had taken on a grayish tone. Observer Park, you are dismissed from your duties. Guards. But Earth's security forces moved first, forming a wall between Solmede and the Council guards. They had been waiting for this. The Council's offer is generous, Han Bin said, standing up. But let me make sure we understand it clearly. You want us to be your soldiers, fight your wars, die for your causes. And in return, you'll give us technology we'll spend generations paying for. You misunderstand, Nen said quickly. We offer friendship. No, Jin Wu interrupted, also standing. You offer chains made of debt and duty. We found your files, Counselor. We know about the other Deathworld species. We know about the 7th species that almost broke free. The Council delegation was backing away now. Their guards looked uncertain, clearly not used to confrontation. Earth appreciates your offer, Han Bin said formally. We will need time to consider it properly. Perhaps 3 months. Nen knew he was trapped. To refuse them time would expose the Council's true intentions. Of course, he said stiffly. Take all the time you need. As the Council delegation left the hall, Solmi turned to Han Bin. 3 months. Han Bin nodded. 3 months to contact the other Deathworld species. 3 months to build our defenses. 3 months to prepare for what comes next. And what comes next? Someone asked. Han Bin looked at the stars visible through the hall's glass roof. Next, we show the galaxy that Earth doesn't bow to threats or tricks. Next, we show them what free Deathworlders can really do. The room filled with determined nods. Earth had just taken its first step toward a very different future than the one the Council had planned. The real question was, who else would walk that path with them? Yanhua Cho stood before the giant wall screen in Earth's strategic command center. Red dots marked the locations of Council ships. Blue dots showed Earth's growing fleet, and yellow dots, those were the most interesting ones, showed the positions of other Deathworld species forces. Their pattern is obvious once you see it, she said, pointing to the map. Captain Han Bin, Jinwu, and Solmai watched carefully. The Council keeps each Deathworld species separated. They never let them work together, or even meet. But that's their weakness, she continued, her eyes bright with excitement. They're so afraid of the Deathworlders joining forces that they've made it easy to spot which ships belong to which species. Jin Woo nodded. My team has made contact with their communication officers. It wasn't hard. They're as curious about us as we are about them. Show them what we found, Yunhua said. Jin Woo tapped his tablet. New images appeared on the screen. Alien faces from different Deathworld species. They looked different from humans, but they all shared the same strong, sturdy build that came from growing up in high gravity. The Rachners. Jin Woo pointed to a species with thick gray skin. They've been under council control for 300 years. The Viridians. He indicated another group with green-tinted scales. 200 years of service. And others, all trapped by council debt, all waiting for a chance to break free. And they're willing to help us? Han Bin asked. Solma stepped forward. More than willing. When we showed them how we discovered the council's true plans, how we're preparing to resist, they want to join us. They've been waiting for someone to take the first step. Yunhua moved her hands across the display, and the map changed. This is my plan. While we pretend to consider the council's offer, we'll quietly move our ships into these positions. Each Earth ship will be ready to link up with nearby Deathworlder vessels. The council will notice if we move our whole fleet, Han Bin warned. That's why we're not moving the whole fleet, Yunhua smiled. We're going to use the council's own tricks against them. Remember how they hide their real ships behind fancy public ones? We're doing the same thing. She zoomed in on one sector. See these cargo ships? Normal trading vessels, according to their registration. But inside, she pressed a button, and the image changed to show hidden weapon systems and reinforced hulls. We've been building them ever since we discovered the council's plans, she explained. They look weak and pretty on the outside, just like council ships, but inside they're pure Deathworlder engineering. And the other species are doing the same. Solma asked. Jin Woo grinned. They started the moment we contacted them. The council is so used to their obedience, they haven't noticed that routine maintenance requests are hiding major upgrades. Yunhua pointed to a timer on the wall. We have 2 months left before we have to give the council our answer. That's 2 months to get every ship in position. 2 months to make sure every Deathworlder crew is ready. And then, Han Bin asked, though he already knew the answer. Then we show the council what happens when you try to enslave people from Deathworlds, Yunhua said firmly. We show them what real strength looks like. She turned back to the map, where the dots were already starting to move into new positions. Somewhere out there, other Deathworlders were watching their own screens, preparing their own ships, ready to answer Earth's call. The council thought they were clever, keeping the Deathworlders apart, but they had forgotten something important. People who survive on Deathworlds don't just grow strong bodies. They grow strong minds too. And now those minds were working together, preparing a surprise that would shake the galaxy. The Grand Council chamber was a massive room made of shining crystal and floating lights. Thousands of council members sat in rising tiers, their silver skin reflecting the soft glow. At the center of the chamber stood Captain Han Bin Kim alone. He wore his Earth uniform proudly. Behind him, on huge screens, the council showed images of their mighty fleet, a not-so-subtle reminder of their power. But Han Bin smiled slightly, knowing what was really happening in space at that very moment. People of Earth have had 3 months to consider our generous offer, High Counselor Nen announced from his high seat. We trust you have made the wise choice. In the control room far above the chamber, Jin Woo sat with his computers. Solma stood beside him, watching the screens that showed hidden movements throughout council space. Everywhere, ships were quietly moving into position. Before we give our answer, Han Bin said calmly, we would like to share something with the council. He pulled out a small device, a presentation, if you will. That is not the protocol, Nen started. I think you'll want to see this, Han Bin interrupted. He pressed the button. The grand screens changed. Instead of council ships, they showed something very different. Records of the council's secret deals, lists of trapped Deathworld species, numbers showing the impossible debts they could never repay. "What is this?" Nen demanded, standing up. "Stop this transmission." "They can't," Jinwoo whispered in the control room, his fingers flying over his keyboard. "Not anymore." Hanbin's voice rang through the chamber. "For centuries, you've been taking people from worlds like Earth. Strong people, people who survived conditions you can't even imagine. You turned them into your soldiers, your slaves, all while pretending to be their friends." The council chamber erupted in shouts. Guards started moving toward Hanbin, but he kept speaking. "You thought you could do the same to Earth. You thought we would be grateful for your gifts and blind to your tricks. But we are not alone anymore." Sol Mei pressed a button, and new images appeared on the screens. Faces of other Deathworlders, hundreds of them, all speaking at once. The Rachners stand with Earth. The Viridians reject council control. The Nexer people choose freedom. More and more voices joined in, each message broadcasting across every council communication channel. Jinwoo had made sure no one could stop the transmission. "Impossible," Nen shouted. "The Deathworlders cannot communicate with each other. We prevented." "You prevented nothing," Hanbin said firmly. "You just taught us to be clever, to work together in secret, to plan." In space, hidden ships were revealing themselves. Council observers watched in shock as supposedly weak cargo vessels transformed, showing their true strength. "Earth rejects your offer," Hanbin declared. "We reject your control. And we are not alone. Every Deathworld species has waited for this day. We will not be your soldiers. We will not be your slaves. We will be free. You dare threaten the council?" Nen's voice shook with rage. "Our fleets will." "Will what?" Hanbin asked quietly. "Fight us. Your ships can barely handle normal space. Your weapons are designed to look pretty, not work in real battle." And now, for the first time, all the Deathworlders stand together. As if to prove his point, the screen showed council ships everywhere being surrounded by revealed Deathworlder vessels, not attacking, just showing that they could. "This is your choice, Council," Hanbin said. "Accept that we are free people and work with us as equals, or—" He let the silence speak for itself. In the control room, Sol Mei squeezed Jinwoo's shoulder. On screens everywhere, Deathworlders watched and waited. The galaxy held its breath. The Council's time of easy control was over. The Deathworlders had spoken, and they would never be silent again. The first attack came exactly as Yanhua had predicted. Council ships appeared near Earth's moon bases, their weapons charged. But they found nothing there. The bases were empty, evacuated hours before. "They're so predictable," Yanhua said, standing in Earth's new command center hidden inside an asteroid. "They always strike at the same targets, use the same tactics." Around her, screens showed battles breaking out across the galaxy. But these weren't the quick victories the Council was used to. This time, they faced prepared opponents. "Status report," Captain Hanbin called out, entering the command center with Sol Mei close behind. "The Rachners have taken control of their home system," Yanhua reported, pointing to a green section of the map. "The Viridians are fighting in their sector, and they're winning. Our ships are helping the Nexer people defend their colonies." Jinwoo's voice came through the speakers. He was coordinating communications from a different base. "Council forces are in chaos. They've never had to fight on so many fronts at once, and their fancy shields don't work so well against Deathworlder weapons." Sol Mei moved to a console, checking new reports. "My people in the Council space stations are helping too. They're shutting down defense systems, opening doors for our forces. Generations of being seen as simple servants made the Council forget we were always watching, always learning." A new alert flashed on the main screen. Hanbin read it and smiled. "The Council's main fleet is heading to Earth. They think if they can beat us, The other Deathworlders will give up. They still don't understand, Yunhua said, shaking her head. She pressed a button, sending new orders to their ships. They think we fight like them, one group at a time, following strict rules. The space around Earth looked empty as the Council fleet arrived. Their silver ships spread out in a perfect attack formation, ready to strike at Earth's major cities. Should we show them how Deathworlders really fight? Han Bin asked. Yanhua nodded and gave the signal they'd all been waiting for. Suddenly, the emptiness of space wasn't empty anymore. Hidden ships appeared everywhere. Earth vessels, Rachnar warships, Viridian fighters, and more. They had been there all along, using technology stolen from the Council to stay invisible. Message from the Council flagship, Solmai announced. They're demanding we surrender. Send them our answer, Han Bin ordered. On every Council ship's screen, a simple message appeared. A Deathworlder never stands alone. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Council ships fired their beautiful energy weapons, but found their targets protected by shields built to withstand the storms of Deathworlds. They tried to use their perfect formations, but the Deathworlder ships fought with the chaos and adaptability that had kept their species alive on harsh worlds. Their ships are retreating, Yanhua reported after an hour of fighting. Not just here, everywhere. The Council is pulling back to their core systems. They're asking for talks, Solmai added, reading a new message. Real talks this time, not just giving orders. Han Bin looked around the command center. On the screens, he could see celebrations breaking out on every Deathworld. Ships from different species were meeting openly for the first time, crews eager to meet their fellow fighters. Tell them we'll talk, he said. But first, they need to understand something. The galaxy is changing. The Deathworlders are free now, and we protect our own. As the message was sent, Han Bin watched the map showing all the Deathworld species, now marked as free allies instead of Council servants. It had taken centuries, but finally, the people of the harsh worlds had found their strength, not just in their bodies or their ships, but in each other. The Council's perfect, ordered galaxy was gone. A new age was beginning, and the Deathworlders would help shape it. 1 year after the Great Battle, the galaxy looked very different. The massive hall of the new Galactic Alliance on Earth was nothing like the old Council chamber. Instead of delicate crystal and floating lights, it was built strong and practical, with reinforced walls that could survive any storm. Captain Han Bin Kim, now Ambassador Kim, stood at the main platform. Around him sat representatives from every Deathworld species, along with reformed Council members who had chosen to work with the new alliance. The last of the Council's unfair debts have been cancelled, he announced. All Deathworld species are now truly free. In the audience, Solmai smiled. She wore a new uniform now, not the Council's silver, but the deep blue of the Alliance. Her grandmother's stories of Earth had spread among her people, and many were returning to visit their ancestral home. The trading routes are safer than ever, Han Bin continued. Turns out ships built for Deathworlds make excellent patrol vessels. Even pirates think twice before attacking them. Jinwu, sitting at his control station, pulled up images on the big screens. They showed Deathworlder ships working together, protecting merchant vessels, and exploring new parts of space. The ships still looked beautiful on the outside. They had kept that part of Council design. But now their beauty came with real strength. But our greatest achievement, Han Bin said, is what we've built together. The screens changed to show new space stations where different species worked side by side. Research centers where Council scientists worked with Deathworlder engineers, combining their knowledge to make better technology. Schools where children from all species learned together, each bringing their own strengths to share. Yanhua stood up from her seat among the military leaders. The Council feared what would happen if Deathworlders united, she said. They were right to be afraid, but not for the reasons they thought. She pressed a button, and new images appeared, the things they had built in just 1 year. ships that could survive any environment, using Council beauty and Deathworlder strength, cities that floated in the clouds but could withstand the worst storms, medical advances that combined Council knowledge with Deathworlder endurance. We didn't unite to destroy, she said. We united to build something better. A Rachnar representative stepped forward, his gray skin gleaming. On my world, we have a saying. Strength is not in the thickness of your walls, but in the friends who stand beside you. On Earth, Han Bin added, we say something similar. Unity is strength. Sol Mei walked to the platform. And my grandmother used to tell me, remember where you come from, but look forward to where you're going. The hall filled with similar sayings from every Deathworld culture. Different words, different languages, but all meaning the same thing. Together, they were stronger. The Council thought being from a Deathworld made us dangerous, Han Bin said. They were wrong. Being from a Deathworld taught us to survive, to adapt, and most importantly, to help each other. Those are the lessons we now share with the galaxy. He looked out at the gathered representatives, former enemies now working together, old fears replaced by new trust. 1 year ago, we rejected the Council's offer because we saw through their lies. Today, we make a different kind of offer to the galaxy. Join us as equals. Learn from us as we learn from you. Build with us as we build with you. As the hall erupted in cheers, Sol Mei thought about how far they had come. The Council had tried to keep Deathworlders apart, fearing their strength. Instead, they had helped create something amazing. A galaxy where strength meant working together, where differences were celebrated, not feared. The day Earth rejected the Council's offer had changed everything. But the change had been for the better. Much better than anyone could have imagined.